But taking a look at the dollar, still mixed bag really with this one. We're looking pretty weak this morning. But again, I wouldn't get too excited, especially because of NFP later, but because, as we've been saying for the past 2-3 weeks now, we're comfortably within this range. So as we are looking bearish, it's not really leading to anything in terms of an opportunity, because with me, the only opportunities that make sense would be either price looking to bounce off the lows, bounce off the highs, or of course breakouts beyond those levels. And then we can target significant highs and lows. Whether we break to the upside, we can look at this high, or we break to the downside, we can look at this low. So there is plans, there is setups at play for the DXY should we make those moves. But yeah, it's a ticking time bomb. The price has to make those moves for all those opportunities to actually set up, and that's hopefully where NFP comes into play later this afternoon. We are looking bearish this morning, but would I look to try and do anything? No. We are approaching some support to our left, but again, context is massive here. Where are we trading? Is it in any area of significance? Not in my opinion. So despite price trading at support, maybe it breaks through, maybe it reacts, I wouldn't be looking for anything meaningful at those areas. So USD, not too interested about the current momentum, the current price, more so what we do at those areas, 98.668 roughly, and 97.629. That's really where my focus lies. And that analysis stands the same for euro dollar as well. We've got equal highs, equal lows here. Euro has been very, very flat lately. Direction hasn't been clear. Again, depending which way price breaks out, there could be some really lovely breakout opportunities, pullback opportunities in both directions, similar to the DXY, whether we see a push to highs over there or a push to these lows. There are opportunities in both directions. Again, it's just about staying patient, waiting for those setups to actually arise. Of course, there are opportunities within the range. We have bounced and rejected both the low and the high recently. Didn't quite get back to the low there. I would have liked to see a bit more downside for us to actually retest that support level as we've done previously. Kind of got about 80% of the way there before price turned around. Seeing some strength this morning. Again, similar to the dollar, wouldn't look to do anything with it. Looks like we're trading through resistance at the moment. I wouldn't get too excited. It's more so what price does at these areas, which is where my interest will lie. If I'm going to trade a ranging market, I want to make sure I'm right at the high or the low of that range. If I'm looking for pullback opportunities, I want to make sure the conditions are bullish or bearish. If we're seeing a clear trend in a particular direction, we're neither doing any of those things. So right now, it's very much sit on my hands, waiting for price to develop. And especially with NFP later this afternoon, I think it all makes sense just to kind of stay put. Unless you're already in a position, stay put and see what we have in store for us this afternoon. Pound USD, same situation occurs, except I really did like the bounce we had this week. Price came back into the low of this support level, 1.338, rejected once, twice, did break through, brief rejection as resistance there. Didn't quite make it over here, but well and truly did actually dip below slightly the level, which was actually a nice confluence. Potentially any early buyers at this level would have been taken out of the market, and then after we saw that reaction, that would have been a nice confirmation. And price has steadily been pushing higher. Of course, USD seeing some weakness now is starting to help pound USD rally. But altogether, we are rejecting the low of the range, so naturally expecting a push towards the high, which would take us around 1.35798. So I'm pretty bullish here with pound USD because we're rejecting the low of the range. So my expectation is a push towards the high, or at least some resistance in this area. But again, in terms of a bigger swing, in terms of my bias for pound USD, that's still not quite in play yet. Still waiting for price to make a move above these areas or below these areas to actually have that concrete bias. If you do break to the upside, 1.375. If you do break to the downside, 1.315 will be my targets in about 200 pip range between both of those targets, both of those levels. So pound USD, I do like what I'm seeing. It's just, again, waiting for price to actually get the setup, which is why I've been speaking about NFP quite a lot, because hopefully we can actually see that start to come into play this afternoon. If not, probably sometime next week. We're not going to range forever. So yeah, it's eventually going to break out. But again, that's where the patience comes in. And if pound USD or USD pairs aren't quite doing it for you, there are other pairs to trade, or you can just potentially wait it out. Dollar CAD, another one which I'm interested in shorting. We have come back to a nice area of supply. I like the rejection. I am contemplating some entries on the 8-hour chart, which will close in about 3 hours and 46 minutes. I like the combination of wicks and candlesticks we're seeing. Really nice piercing wick into that zone. Strong shift of momentum. This could be a nice sell, at least back to lows here. I'm liking the candlestick formation. But again, 3 hours and 46 minutes is a long period of time. And we could look a lot different between now and then. But let's say if you do close well, of course, this will factor in NFP as well. This will close around 2 p.m. UK time, and NFP is 1:30. So it will encompass NFP and allow me to enter after. So I'm not jumping in front of that train. But yeah, if the rejection looks good by the time this candle closes, I really like the wick into that level. I've been speaking about dollar CAD shorts throughout the week. I said it's a pair which I do like the downside opportunity for. We have come back into major resistance over here once, almost a second time, but then we came in for a second time and actually tested the level, a third time and a fourth there. So you can see it acting as resistance in a very significant manner, really big moves to the downside from these areas. And of course, price is now coming back into that level again. So potentially we could see another big drop. These are not small reactions from these areas. I would say a push back to this low would be pretty likely. There is a world where we do see a push all the way down here. Of course, as long as price does stay below resistance, that's a key factor. We do need to stay below resistance there. And then, yeah, we could see a push back into this low and probably even a push beyond that as well, back to 1.323 as well. But that's something we can speak about maybe in the next coming weeks. But for now, I like the shorts for dollar CAD, rejecting an area pretty well. Like I said, 8 hours, probably where I'll find my entry. 4 hour, not quite doing it in terms of how the candles are closing. So 8 hour has my attention for now. Aussie dollar, again, a bit of back and forth here. Price has just been up and down, up and down. We have come back to some nice resistance this week, and we have seen some really nice reactions. Once over there towards the start of the week, and again on Wednesday, nice reaction. Nothing crazy though, and again, that was really a point I made across at the start of the week, that Aussie dollar is quite flat. I do think there's a likelihood for us to continue higher, because I'm looking at the weekly chart and looking at where all these wicks are positioned. I'm seeing a lot of wicks to the downside. You've been very corrective on the way up, so my initial impression for Aussie dollar was a drop lower, but we just haven't seen that, and instead of getting that momentum and that push lower, we've got a lot of wicks here to the downside. So it looks to me that price has found support and perhaps is getting ready for another push back to resistance there. So I actually do have a slight bullish bias for Aussie dollar, but the market is still flat. So as I said at the start of the week, if we do push into resistance and reject well, I still think that's a smart place for a short. And likewise, if price does make a move back to resistance up here at 0.66200, I also think that's a smart place for a short. Again, not necessarily looking for big swings here, more so just looking to play reactions. Price is ranging, it's quite flat. We haven't really gone anywhere for the past couple of months now. So the plan is very much finding key areas, shorting from them, and then just seeing how far we could go and managing the trades closely. Maybe you do catch a big move, maybe it's more of a shallow move. The market will have the final say in that. But yeah, if we are approaching resistance again, so naturally keeping an eye on some selling opportunities at that same level, 0.656. If we do rally through, great. We'll see what price can do here at 0.662. Looking for a similar move, a reaction off that area. Maybe it's a push into this low. Maybe it's a big sell-off. But we'll manage that as we go along. But for now, just looking to sell and buy off key areas. I like this area for a long as well. New Zealand dollar, I've been speaking about the channel that price has been trading in. That's still very much where the focus is. Lower highs consistently, lower lows as well. At the start of the week, I did mention it would be nice to catch a short off the trend line, potentially to catch the next lower high. We've had the first test, the second test, the third, and perhaps we could get a fourth, but of course we didn't quite see that happen. We did test this supply zone, so that was a nice reaction, but I wanted to see price come into the trend line and reject it well, so we kind of got that layer of confluence building up. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but we could still see that setup occur. Price looks like it's having a lot of trouble around the middle of that range of the channel, and perhaps we could see a push back to resistance. If we could see that happen, then this is an area which, like I said, looks good for shorting opportunities. Of course, I would wait for price to react and see how price is trading at those levels, because if we don't see sufficient rejection, you would want to stay away. But let's say price gets there, finds some nice wicks, see some nice bearish candle closures, I think that's a great place for a short, and you could be looking for a push back to the swing low here, maybe even the low of the channel. So that's still very much an area of focus, an area to look for shorts. And if we do break to the upside, you can look for pullbacks and probably some nice breakout opportunities as well. But we can probably speak more about that when we actually get there. For now, that is still where the focus lies. As for gold again still showing signs of momentum. We are a little bit corrective this morning over here, so perhaps again we could still see a sell-off. I still like this area for a buy. Nice brief pause there, really strong shift of momentum, really strong candle as we can see. So it would be nice to see gold come back and retest that zone before continuing bullish, and perhaps even take out this wick low here. Maybe some early buyers do have some stops in that area, potentially go and take them out to continue. I think that looks like a nice prospect, a nice setup to entertain. On the lower time frames though, we are looking just a little bit flat. It looks like this supply zone to our left is well and truly finding resistance. We could still rally through this. Again, the selling opportunities are a bit aggressive for gold. Take into consideration how bullish we've been on the monthly, weekly, daily charts. The fact that we've just seen a big breakout here as well. So if you are shorting, be prepared to close the trade early and not kind of sit through momentum, because if the buys kick in at any point, we could very much see price skyrocket again. And gold is not a market to be messing around, especially in these conditions. So I do understand the selling opportunities. I would say we're quite corrected now, so I would probably wait for maybe a break of a counter trend line for an entry to really show that momentum is now picked up for the sellers. If not, I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of just do something like that. And in terms of the opportunity we spoke out just a moment ago, I still like this as an area to buy. So if we do have that sell, great. Then we can speak about some longs around 3,500 for a buy. So that's still my plan of action with gold. And silver, very much a similar situation as to gold. Extremely bullish market, smashed through the highs recently. I still like some areas down here for some buys if we should get there. At the moment, this is our kind of a swing low area of demand, if you will. I can see potentially another sell-off before some continuations. I think that could be a nice trade on an hourly chart, 30-minute chart. This to me just looks like a corrective, retracement, as you would expect. At some point, price is not going to just continue forever. It's going to have its pullbacks, and this looks like a pullback to me. I'm not seeing any aggressive selling pressure or any significant break of structure to tell me that, okay, this is actually price reversing. So my impressions with silver is still very, very bullish market, still likely to continue, and it would be nice if we can pick some longs from support and potentially carry that back to highs and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's still where my focus is for silver. Keep an eye on this area here as well. We might even tap into that before continuing, just marking out key areas of demand and support where price potentially could rally from. For me, the market is still very bullish on numerous time frames, so it's just about kind of buying the dips and see if you can take it back to highs.